Egypt, the land of pharaohs, or better known as the Gift of the Nile, is a country steeped in ancient history, medicine, mystery, black magic, and pagan gods. But for millions, it's also the backdrop to one of the most iconic stories in the Bible, the rise of Moses, the 10 plagues, and the exodus of the Israelites. Located in northeastern Africa, it shares its borders with Sudan in the south, Libya to the west, the Mediterranean Sea to the north, and the Red Sea to the east, making it a perfect hub for merchant trade. The country is abundant in resources and rich vegetation, owing to the famous Nile River. Egypt is approximately 386,662 square miles, with its Sinai Peninsula extending all the way into southern Asia. Officially named the Arab Republic of Egypt, the country has experienced rapid population growth over the past few years, with its population now standing at approximately 113 million as of 2024. The country is a melting pot of different religions and ethnicities, of whom the majority is said to be Sunni Muslims, followed by Coptic Christians and a small minority of Nubians and other ethnic tribes. Known for being an agricultural nation, this practice is slowly declining, giving way to new economic trends in the sector of telecommunications, tourism, and construction. But agriculture still remains the backbone of the country. Now let's take a look at ancient Egypt. The name Egypt is said to be used over 700 times in the Bible, bringing to light its importance in ancient times, seen both as a source of refuge and oppression for the Israelites. As you read the scriptures, you may come across the names such as the land of Ham or Mitzrayim. Both names represent Egypt in ancient times. As a matter of fact, the name Mitzrayim, which is Hebrew, is still in use today. If you're curious as to why Egypt was known as the land of Ham, we must go back to the beginning, precisely Genesis 10. Here we are introduced to Noah and his sons after the flood. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. His son Ham had 4 sons, Cush, Mitzrayim, Put, and Canaan. Mitzrayim is also known as ancient Egypt, which is why the Egyptians were also referred to as Hamites, having come from the line of Ham. But why was Egypt able to play such a vital role in shaping the economic climate of its time? From here, we will take a look at the role of Egypt in biblical history. Egypt is first mentioned in Genesis 12 as a place of refuge for Abraham and his family during the famine that struck the land of Canaan and the neighboring territories. The scriptures explain that the famine was so severe that Abram and his entire household went down into Egypt to escape the famine. In chapter 13 of Genesis, we are told that when Abraham left Egypt, he acquired a massive amount of gold and silver, including livestock. The scripture referred to Abram as being rich in these things. But he was not the only one. His nephew Lot also acquired much wealth. So why wasn't Egypt affected by the famine at all? Egypt is seen here as a land of prosperity, full of wealth and abundant in resources. Some scholars believe that Egypt was able to withstand the famine due to its strategic location and agricultural practices, which may have been more highly developed than that of its neighbors. Egypt was a powerhouse of its time. The people were skilled in the art of building and architecture, medicine, agriculture, mathematics, and much more. Being in direct relations to the Babylonians, the Akkadians, and the Assyrians, it is no wonder they possessed such skills that the Israelites may not have been familiar with, as they were mostly shepherds. Egypt is located in the fertile floodplain of the Nile Delta, which was abundant in minerals. This allowed for a bountiful harvest of crops such as wheat and barley, a staple of the Egyptian diet, as well as a variety of different fruits and vegetables. So how was Abraham able to journey to Egypt with his entire family? By modern standards, that would have been a very long journey by foot, considering the desert terrain. If you look on the map, the distance between the land of Canaan and Egypt could be well over 300 miles, which means that it would have taken Abraham and his family more than 7 days to reach their destination. Of course, the journey would be less difficult if camels were the main mode of transportation. However, some historians believe that camels were only domesticated 1,000 years after Abraham. That may not be possible, as the scripture says in Genesis 12:16 that Pharaoh gave Abraham sheep, oxen, donkeys, and camels. Also, further archaeological evidence shows that the Bactrian camel, which is the two-humped camel, was already domesticated in parts of Mesopotamia by the 3rd millennium BCE. Another theory suggests that Egypt must have been much closer in proximity to the land of Canaan than we think, compared to how it looks on the map today. As we know, earlier maps may not have been fairly accurate. According to History.com, the earliest world map was in existence from since the 6th century BCE, carved into clay tablets in the ancient city of Babylon. By then, land masses may have changed, giving way to new landscape. But one thing is sure, that Abraham was able to make that journey from Canaan to Egypt and from Egypt back to Canaan. The same can be said for Joseph. Remember Joseph, who was sold into slavery in Egypt by his brothers? Though he had to deal with some unfortunate circumstances, it was all part of God's master plan. Joseph was sent ahead of his family into Egypt to preserve the nation of Israel. Just like it was in the time of Abraham, the land of Canaan suffered a severe famine again. Joseph, now being promoted to governor of all Egypt, was in a position to help his family. And we know the rest of the story, how the sons of Jacob, also known as Israel, dwelt in the land of Egypt, in the region of Goshen, and became fruitful and multiplied. In this example, we see Egypt being used as a safe haven for the Israelites under the leadership of Joseph. It was a divine preservation. But things did not remain that way for too long. After the death of Joseph, a new Pharaoh began to rule over Egypt, and this Pharaoh knew nothing about Joseph's previous contribution to the land, which in itself is very strange, as he was the governor of Egypt. And when he died, his body was even embalmed, which is a preferred method used by the Egyptians to take care of their dead. Furthermore, this new Pharaoh was threatened by how the Israelites flourished and multiplied in the land of Goshen, which according to Genesis 47 is also known as the land of Ramses. Believing that the Israelites would become too powerful and join forces with their enemies, Pharaoh punished the Israelites with hard labor. But even that did not stop the Israelites from multiplying. In an act of desperation, Pharaoh commanded the Hebrew midwives to kill every male child born to a Hebrew woman. The midwives disobeyed Pharaoh's orders because they feared their God and kept the male children alive. That may have upset Pharaoh, and he sent out a decree that every Hebrew son shall be thrown into the river, but the girls are to be kept alive. Fearing that her son will be killed, Moses' mother gathered together bulrushes and made it into an ark, placed Moses inside the ark, and sailed it down the Nile River. Pharaoh's daughter discovers the ark and the baby Moses inside. She adopts the child as her own. Moses then grows up in Pharaoh's palace, but is aware of his Hebrew ancestry, and it is here the story takes an unexpected turn. After seeing a Hebrew being beaten severely by an Egyptian taskmaster, Moses intervenes and kills the Egyptian, burying him in the sand. But his crime was not hidden, and news of the killing soon reached the ears of Pharaoh, and he sought to take the life of Moses. To preserve his life, Moses escapes from Egypt and flees to Midian, where he meets and marries Zipporah, the daughter of the priest of Midian. Moses is now a shepherd, and while attending his father-in-law's flock in the desert region, he comes to Mount Horeb, where he encounters God in the burning bush. God then tells Moses that he has heard the cries of his people and have come down to deliver them from their affliction. God then tells Moses that he's sending him back into Egypt to deliver his people from bondage, to bring them into a land flowing with milk and honey. Pharaoh, on the other hand, was not keen on letting the Israelites go, because God kept hardening his heart. After Egypt was inflicted by a series of plagues sent by God himself, Pharaoh relented after the 10th plague and allowed the Israelites to leave. But after the Israelites left Egypt, Pharaoh quickly changed his mind and chased after the Israelites all the way to the Red Sea. The Israelites seemed trapped, but God was about to perform a big miracle through Moses. He told Moses to take his staff and stretch it over the Red Sea, Then God parted the Red Sea and the Israelites were able to cross over to the other side. The Egyptians, fearing the Israelites were about to escape, charged after them into the midst of the Red Sea. God allowed the waters to close back onto the Egyptians, and all those that went into the sea behind the Israelites drowned. When it comes to the Exodus story, there are many discussions and debates amongst historians regarding which pharaoh may have ruled Egypt during the time of the Exodus. Many believe it was either Ramses, Ahmose, or Thutmose III. However, Ramses II has always been attributed with the role of being the pharaoh of the Exodus. This can be due to the fact that in Exodus 1, we are told that the Israelites built the cities of Pithom and Ramses. Interestingly enough, the city of Pi-Ramses did exist and was built by Ramses II. Whether you believe it was Ramses or some other pharaoh, it does not add or take away anything from the Exodus story and God's mighty display of power. When looking through spiritual lenses, Egypt is not just a physical location. It's a symbol or representation of power, human pride, opposition, oppression, and bondage. From Pharaohs' hardened hearts to the gods of Egypt being judged in the plagues, the Exodus is as much a spiritual battle as well as a political escape. Yet, Egypt is also seen as a place of refuge. Abraham went there in a famine, so did Jacob, and centuries later, so did Jesus. In prophecy, Egypt is both warned and redeemed. In theology, it's both the oppressor and the rescued. In the end, Egypt reminds us that no matter how powerful the world seems, God's story always moves forward. God has the final say in all things. Whether you see it as history or theology, Egypt has secured its place in biblical history. From Abraham to Yeshua, this ancient land shaped the journey of God's people. If you found this video insightful, give it a like and share it with others curious about biblical history. Do not forget to subscribe for more videos.